This is the SmallmouthCrush podcast. If you're a hardcore angler, you've come to the right place. This is a weekly podcast that will interview some of the top smallmouth bass anglers in North America. Travis and his guest will discuss what it takes to consistently catch big smallmouth, and you'll get a glimpse inside the mind of a trophy smallmouth angler. And now, here's your host of the SmallmouthCrush podcast, Travis Manson.
Hello, welcome to the SmallmouthCrush podcast. My name is Travis Manson. Another exciting week, another week of smallmouth bass fishing talk. Some of the top experts when it comes to smallmouth fishing across the country. We got a unique guest this week. He catches big bass, and he does, big largemouth and big smallmouth on big baits, but we're going to get into all that. I'm super excited. Austin Neary joins us. And we're going to be talking smallmouth in the southern part of the country. So we're going to leave the northern zone just for this week and talk with Austin and see what kind of information he can dish out. We're going to bring him on shortly. But I first want to give a shout out to the Real Shot. They carry all the most wanted bass tackle that a SmallmouthCrush fan could ask for. Top brands like Megabass, Jackal, Evergreen, Z-Man, Daiwa, Shimano, Dirty Jigs, Kitech, St. Croix rods, reels, whatever you need. They got it all. They're going to help you get set up for your next big bass adventure or big tournament that you have coming up. Same day shipping, by the way. And if you use my promo code SmallmouthCrush15, we're going to give you 15% off your first order. So head on over to therealshot.com and let them know SmallmouthCrush sent you. Let's bring on the big shooter.
Oh,
there he is.
I'm awake and alive.
What's your nickname? You got a nickname?
They call me the Dream Catcher.
Ah, the Dream Catcher.
I mean, when I was in college, I played baseball at the university. I got hurt. And then, we're real close here to the Cherokee Reservation. And I was like, you know what? Everyone has a dream catch. They aspire to catch a dream catch. And, dream catchers play on words. So everyone knows me as the Dream Catcher on the YouTube channel and everything. So.
Sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. That's awesome. So let's get a little bit of background about yourself. I want to know what part of the country you're chilling in right now. And let's talk small. Now listen, I know you're a big largemouth guy too. Okay.
Big spotted bass too. I love
and spotted bass. I keep forgetting about that. But you'd like to get on a few big smallmouth, and you got some secrets we want to hear. So what's your story, man? Give us your background if you would.
Yeah, so born in South Carolina. Dad was a home builder, ended up moving to South Baltimore, cut my teeth on the Upper Bay, the Potomac River, grew up next to your boy, Epic Eric, literally neighbors.
Right.
And, he was kind of my fishing mentor. And then I went to school and played baseball at Western. He goes, man, you seen this Southern Trout Eaters DVD? And I was like, no. He goes, man, they're in Western North Carolina, out where you're going to school. I went to school at Western Carolina University. And he goes, man, we got to throw some big baits down there. Dude, I ended up getting hurt my sophomore year. Don't really know what I want to do. I fished a couple of the lakes when I had free time, started the fishing team at the university, had some great success, won a couple regionals. And anyways, got in the big bait game and then started just crushing it and winning a lot of tournaments, 28 to 32 pounds. And guys are coming in with 15, 16 pounds, calling me cheater and everything. And I said, I think I can start guiding. So I started guiding with big baits and then realized there was no good tackle shop and started Dream Catchers Fishing Supply. And, we're looking at expanding that. And so I've had the tackle shop for a few years, been guiding for 7 years, catching big smallies, big largemouth, big smallmouth. And, man, just love it. I'm addicted to watching people reeling their dream catch. So
sure. Do you still fish tournaments?
Honestly, I fished the opens last year, did pretty good. I think I finished 30 something in points out of however many guys fished it. But, I make a guaranteed $600 every time I guide somebody, and then I make a nice tip. So for me, it's like between my wife and I are very involved in our community. So, I was away for, a week and a half, and then traveling. And then, how it is on the tournament trail, man, you can get lonely when you're all by yourself on a boat and just grinding, trying to figure out the stuff. And, every week, I guide 5 to 6 days a week, $600 a day. And even when I'm doing well in the tournament scene, I pay taxes on that crap. So, I'm like, I'm just going to keep guiding. And, I just cut my teeth day in, day out, man, just getting done with a trip, and more tomorrow and more the day after.
Wow. No, that's awesome. So talk about the smallmouth fishing, because a lot of people, when they think big
Yeah.
smallmouth, they're thinking the Great Lakes and,
Of course.
way up north. But I guess you don't have to travel that far. You got some good opportunity by you. Are you fishing? Give me an idea of the places that you're fishing. Are they big areas? Are they well known?
Yeah, so a little bit of everything, man, from hole in the wall lakes to we have, some big lakes that guys have heard of and been to, but we live in what's called like the smallmouth triangle. So guess where the world record smallmouth was caught? Kentucky.
Probably close to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Kentucky. So the triangle kind of goes from Kentucky down to Tennessee and then Western North Carolina. Our state record smallmouth, I think, is just a tad under 11 pounds.
Jeez.
And yeah, Tennessee has giants, and then South Carolina state record is 9 pounds, which is Lake Jocassee, which is a lake I guide on. And then Tennessee's got some mega smallmouth. So anyways, I'm in Western North Carolina. We have lakes like Fontana Lake, Lake Hiwassee, Nantahala, Lake Glenville, Lake Toxaway, Lake Jocassee. And then even now, my guide service has really started to brand itself at Lake James, which I voted the #1 smallmouth fishery in the Southeast. Just been smashing a lot of 4 and 5 pounders there. So Western North Carolina, I don't know if you've heard of any of those lakes really. Like,
No, dude.
Lake James?
Nope.
How about Nantahala?
Nope.
How about Glenville?
No.
How about Jocassee? Most people have heard of Jocassee just because it's just above Hartwell.
No, sir.
Yeah, it's actually technically it's above Kiwi, which is Kiwi's above Hartwell, but freaking massive,
Dude.
like massive smallies.
It's crazy, I mean, I don't even know. Like I wouldn't even know where to begin. It sounds like you have a bunch of lakes. Are they all within a couple hours drive of each other?
All within an hour and a half, really. Where my shop is in Silva, it's an hour to an hour 15 minutes to most of the lakes. Some of them are just 30 minutes away. And really the unique thing is, for me, when I was in college, I'm like, there's all these vacation rentals on all these lakes. And people from Atlanta, people from Charlotte, people from Florida, because we're at 3,500 feet elevation, the highest lakes east of the Mississippi River. There's no other lakes higher in elevation east of the Mississippi than the lakes I guide on. And, obviously just cut my teeth there. I just caught a ton of big smallies. And I'm like, man, these lakes are juice, and they're juice because they got some fat, oily herring in them that are like that big.
Yeah. So, that's really unique, because when I think of the South and big smallmouth, I think of the Tennessee River and places like Pickwick and Wheeler, which is, I would assume a little bit more well known. So this is going to be a fascinating interview with you, because, we're talking inland lakes, high elevation, you're chasing herring.
Bluebacks,
right?
Yeah.
Bluebacks.
They're threadfin, but the big girls eat bluebacks and trout. They eat trout. They love trout.
Come on.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, just ignorant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay. So many questions here.
Yeah.
I know you like throwing big baits. I know you throw some small baits too every once in a while.
I'm scared.
Walk me through kind of the seasonal patterns when it comes to smallmouth fishing in your region. Let's start out. Obviously you can fish year round, but let's start out here in the springtime and pre-spawn. And when is the pre-spawn in your mind?
Yeah. So, a lot of it depends on mountain weather. We don't, we had a super late spawn this year. We were catching smallies on beds in June, kind of like you guys are doing in New York. Just because we're so high in elevation, you get a couple cold, it's May, right? So we still got some cold mornings we've had, where it's down in the 30s, and we've had snow up in late April. So it's not uncommon to kind of get a pushback spawn. But, when I'm thinking winter time, like kind of late winter, early pre-spawn spring fishing, a lot of those big smallies, they're hanging out way deep out off point. So I'm talking about, a long point might run 100 yards into the lake, and it might be 20 foot deep at that 100-yard mark. And then there's like a shelf or a ledge that drops down to another 40 or even 50 foot. And then it drops off to the main channel. And that's where we're really targeting. Those fish are kind of going to start to move up shallower as the progression happens with that water temperature. So
is that where they're wintering as well?
They're wintering. Yeah. I've caught on Lake Jocassee a few other places I've caught smallmouth as deep as 65, 70 foot deep, but in that wintertime deal. But when it's really getting back into that early pre-spawn, they're starting to get up there 40, 35, 40, 35, 30. And, just honestly, how I attack them is just a small Kitech. Kitech. I've caught some dang fat, ugly ones on a underspin, man. Just, a fish head spin, half ounce, just dredging the bottom as slow as you can creep it, and those fish are just, I think it's weird because where you are, you guys don't have crazy deep water like that, do you?
What do you mean by crazy deep water? I mean,
are you guys catching smallies in 50 foot?
Sure, we do.
Really? Yeah.
On the Great Lakes especially, and
Yeah.
there's a few inland lakes where that comes into play. But
Yeah.
Normally on an inland lake, you don't have to go much over 50, 60 feet.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said throwing a Kitech on an underspin. What size are you throwing? Because you're throwing a half ounce, but what size Kitech?
Well, so it comes down to matching the hatch. I helped develop the finesse underspin that fish head's throwing now because I said, dude, you're really missing out on a thread fin style lure. And that's for really chasing the spots around when they're crushing thread fin in the wintertime. But a lot of these big smallies, I'm throwing a 3.8, a big, because I'm telling you, man, they're coughing up herring that you're like, golly, like, man, he's got a 4 or 5 inch or a 5 or 6 inch herring in his mouth, and he ate my 4 or 5 inch swim bait. So I really like a 3.8 on that 3/0 half ounce underspin. That's pretty much my go-to. And a 3/8 ounce, maybe if you want to let it really crawl on the bottom. I like to control the sink a little better with a 3/8.
Okay.
Just really crawl it. So
when that water starts getting into the mid 50s, what's happening now?
Yeah. So, everything's moving shallow. It's this whole migration of these fish moving up shallow. The herring are starting to move shallow too.
So why is the herring moving shallow? Are they spawning, or
they'll spawn? They'll start spawning in that kind of mid. I've seen them spawning as cold as 64, and they'll start to spawn really when it hits 70 into the 70s.
Oh,
but they just kind of, man, they'll hang out there. I was out there today. And you'll see them in super deep water, like 60, 70 foot in the wintertime. And then you just tend to notice they just kind of move up in the water column with a little bit warmer water, up in the water column, up in the water column. And they just know, just migration, that instinct to just kind of move shallow. So, a lot of these fish, they're on those long points, those herring are moving up. And when it's windy, oh my gosh, dude, if you have a +1 jerkbait on, with a little bit of wind, you duct tape the rod in your hand and you rip that thing all day and get your arm ripped off.
So early spring, these fish are moving up the points, chasing herring. You're using the Megabass 110 plus.
Yeah, +1. I'll be honest, I like the +2. The +2 gets fouled up a lot, but it gets down there and really touches them. Because what I tend to notice are those smallmouth crews, and once again, pre-spawn, they're cruising around, in wolf packs of 3 to 6 or 7 fish, the big ones at least. The little ones will get in bigger groups, but they're hanging out that 20 to 25 foot zone, and it's super clear water. I'm talking about, so most of the lakes I got on, you can drop a dime down and watch the dime go down 20 foot. So, these fish are cruising there and they're feeding up, and I like that +1, just that hard erratic action. You know how it is. It moves so much water. It has a big loud knocker in it, and then big aggressive smallmouth will just swim up and smoke that thing.
Wow. Okay, great.
Yeah.
As far as colors, what's your favorite? There's so many different colors out there when it comes to jerkbaits, and
yeah,
I know I get confused sometimes because there's crazy wild colors, there's natural colors, there's clear see-through ghost type colors. Where does one start, or does it really dictate by conditions, whether it be sun or clouds?
That's the only thing that I focus on. And they'll eat an A-rig too, obviously, when the wind's up and that water's in that kind of mid 50. They'll just smoke an A-rig. They'll smoke a big glide bait or big swim bait too. But yeah, the color is totally just dependent on light for me. It's like it's simple little rhyme right here. When it's cloudy, bone. When it's sunny, chrome. And what I mean by that is you're really trying to play how light works. A bone lure or a pearl or a white lure, it absorbs the light, and a chrome lure is going to reflect the light. So when it's cloudy, man, if you put a French Pearl Kitech 3.8 or a French Pearl Megabass in the water, dude, your freaking pupils will hurt. You'll feel the muscles in the back of your eyes because you're like, God, that thing like glows. But when it's sunny, you're a French Pearl and a white, you're like, it don't really look real good. But then you put on a natural color, like a Pro Blue, I think it's Pro Blue Silver, or an alewife colored Kitech, or an M Shad. The M Shad is really, because it's so chromy, I call it my chromy homie, that M Shad +1. And man, it's just, I needed to reflect in the sun because that's most visible, but I needed to absorb in the clouds because that's most visible. A chrome bait in the clouds looks hideous. It's like, It's the most dull looking lure you've ever seen. Are you still going to catch fish on it? If you throw it by one's grill, you probably will. But, when it's freaking flashing, and it's sunny, high bluebird skies and ripping 10, 15 mile per hour wind, man, that's going to flash a long ways in our clear water, and same deal with that pearl when it's cloudy, man. It just sticks out like a sore thumb. So pretty simple. When it's cloudy, bone. When it's sunny, chrome, or natural. When you're throwing a Kitech, if it's sunny, you want something natural. So that's how I break
that's real
it down.
good advice. Keep
pretty
it
simple.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know how it is, man. I own a tackle shop and I know how it goes. Guys come in and say, "You got any of those green pumpkin with 3 flecks of purple and a red dot and the chartreuse tail?" And I'm like, dude, they are apex predators. If they are that freaking worried about 3 flecks of purple, we have some serious problems. But those guys swear by it. And then me, the tackle shop owner, is forced to order a minimum order quantity of 10 to carry the product. And I'm stuck on stupid lures forever, and I'm like, dude, I'm the same way with jig fishing. I'm like, dude, our crawfish are green and orange and a little bit of brown. If they ain't eating a brown one, throw a green one, put a little orange on it. Vice versa. If it's muddy, put on a black and blue. If they ain't eating none of that, they ain't eating a jig. Dude, tackle box is about this big.
Come on. Well,
simple.
Not your big baits tackle box. So that's what we definitely want to talk about too. But let's continue on with the, during the spawn, you said you have really clear water. Those fish get on beds, I'm sure that's a fun way to sight fish. And then you probably have how long do they spawn? Is it a month long, depending on weather, or a couple of weeks? Is it quick?
For us, it's crazy because I think about where you guys are and it's relatively flat land. So you don't have any kind of elevation change. We'll have one lake where the smallmouth are spawning in late April, and another lake literally 45 minutes down the road, the water temperature is still in the high 40s just because of the elevation change, So as far as regionally, man, the spawn happens from early April all the way to late June, which is, it obviously is lake dependent. If they're pulling up on one lake, they're going to be pulling up pretty much everywhere at that lake. But, the spawn is a month long or so. And same deal with the later lake where it's like, they're spawning in late May, and now that's going to go into late June. Sure. Yeah.
Do you see a typical period right after the spawn when it's a little tough to catch these smallmouth, or they put the feed bag back on right after the spawn?
So that's kind of the unique thing about the herring lakes, man. You go straight from the bass spawn, and then that water's kind of in that low to mid 60s, creeping up in the 70s, and you turn around and those herring are on the bank for 3 or 4 weeks. So those smallmouth, dude, I have literally seen this has happened. I've caught a smallmouth off a bed, like a buck smallie off a bed. Put him in my live well, came back, maybe this one had a fat, nasty black dot on it, this big smallie. I'm like, dang, she swam off. Well, I come back to the area later to see if she's on the bed, and she's not. Well, I throw my dang spook up on the bank, shad flickering, the herring flickering. I walk that thing, boom, boat flip it, big old fat black dot on her. She's like, piss on it, I'm going to go eat herring.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous.
So that's got to be super exciting,
man.
Something I've never experienced.
Gosh, I've got some footage on our YouTube channel that's just gruesome. Literally, just of smallmouth destroying baits in that much water. Yeah.
Bait of choice then when we're dealing with the shad, with the herring spawn.
I actually just put a video up talking about it. When it's calm, I like something very natural and not very loud. I want like a weightless Kitech, like right underneath the surface, or even a weightless fluke. You know, and a lot of times I'm paralleling the bank in the strike zone longer. So a lot of guys get stuck in casting to the bank. And man, really the deal is, I tell people, I'm like, when I'm guiding, I'm like, here's the deal. This is a one-person show. The person on the front is going to catch a fish, and then you guys are going to switch, and you guys are going to switch about 50 times because we're going to catch 100 of them. But when it's really, you know, wavy, a lot of turbulence, turbidity, I'm throwing something really loud, like a big knocker, walking bait, you know, I'm a little stick, a cane walker, something that's moving a lot of water, and even a big swim bait, you know, just burning that thing down the bank, looking like a herring that's trying to drop her eggs and skedaddle, you know. So really, when it's calmer, something very natural.
Okay.
When it's crazy, you can get away with just more power fishing style baits. Your walking baits, a spinner bait, you know. I like to just keep it really simple though. With my I'm throwing a Topwater, a fluke, and a Kitech most of the time when I'm targeting them big smallmouth.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So do you notice a time when, okay, you've been cracking on these fish up shallow, they're pushing up herring, they're they're biting, and then all of a sudden, does a herring spawn kind of like there one day, gone the next, or is it, and then it's done?
Yeah, what I tend to notice on our lakes is there is a kind of spot where it goes from herring spawn, and once again, depending on, the herring spawn on some lakes, once again, in early May, and there's other lakes the herring spawn happens up until August. So I can get on that nasty topwater bite with big smallies literally for like 3 or 4 months, and it's just ignorant, you know. And there is though a point in time at which I think those herring are done. They back out. And then really they almost seem like ghosts. And how we have been targeting them is now on some of the lakes, they'll come up shallow in the bluegill spawn. Do they do that up there when the bluegill spawn? Will smallmouth get on them too?
I haven't experienced that a whole lot either.
Okay. So
I'm sure it does. Obviously they're going to feed on the bluegill, as you know, that's more of a largemouth thing. We find a lot of lakes that have a mixed bag. The Great Lakes smallmouth, I don't think they're too interested or focused on that. I'm sure if they're in the area they would, but
yeah, of course,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so the smallmouth do one of two things. They either head way out to deep water, you know, which we're targeting them. A lot of those fish end up coughing up crawdads when we catch them. And then the other thing they do is they wolf pack on the bank. Like they will literally get on the bank in inches of water and just chase around bluegill that are this big, you know. And man, you can literally see them coming down the bank, and you're like, oh my gosh. I don't know if you ever watched the college series when Tom Frink won on Lake Chatoog throwing the rat. He's like, oh, there's a wolf pack coming down the bank, and he throws a 10-inch rat out there, and big largemouth come up and eat. Well, on our lakes that have smallmouth, the smallmouth act the same way. When those brim get up there and you have those juvenile, immature brim that are just new to the world and are like, oh, you know, what am I doing? And, you know, them big smallmouth know that they're vulnerable. And man, I've caught a lot of my biggest smallmouth's right at 7 pounds, caught it literally on the bank, chasing brim.
Dang.
Yeah. So you get
to come fish next to you, man. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's unique because, like I said, all the smallies move up for the herring spawn. It's like all the baits up shallow. Let's all just hunker down and eat, and that's what they're doing. But then a lot of those fish, when those herring back out, man, herring are addictive to bass. They're fatty, they're oily, they don't need a lot of plankton to grow. So our lakes that are really clear water, low, I guess, I don't know, nutrient, not very. They're called oligotrophic. The people call them oligotrophic, which means highland reservoir, no nutrients, very clear water. But, you know, they tend to have bad shad populations. Well, all of a sudden, these herring are thriving. So a lot of these bass get addicted to these things, and they'll move out. And some of those smallmouth, man, I think they get so big and so gnarly. They're just like, I'm coming up shallow to hang out with the largemouth, man. No race-related incidents here. We can party together.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you see that a lot? I mean, these lakes that have these good populations of smallmouth, is there also a good population of largemouth and spotted bass?
Yeah, totally. I mean, honestly, most of the lakes, we're having a problem in my region where the spotted bass, dude, are like the high school girl who slept with everybody,
Mm.
and they're spawning with everybody. So what you're starting to catch is a lot of meanmouth, which are those spotted bass mixed with smallies, and you can tell because you're like, golly, that's like a green looking smallmouth, and then it has a dot on the tongue, and you're like, ooh, that's one of those mixed ones. And a lot of people are like, oh, those fish can't reproduce. And I'm like, well, bull crap, because if they couldn't reproduce, smallmouth will eventually link up with smallmouth and the smallmouth population would continue. I think those spotted bass impurify those genetics, and then that offspring impurify it more, and they can spawn with everybody else and they impurify it, and then so forth. So a lot of our lakes that have spotted bass, like dude, Lake Chatuge used to be a epic smallmouth fishery. There's not a smallmouth in it now. It's a spotted bass mecca. But Fontana Lake, same deal. Used to be one of the best smallmouth places in the whole Southeast.
Wow.
Lake Hiawassee, where the state record came from, 10 pounds, 11 ounces, almost 11 pounder. Dude, it's a spotted bass factory now. It's really hard to catch smallies, but when you catch them, they're big. So, but they all coexist. Largemouth and smallmouth do fine together. As soon as you introduce the spotted bass, man, it's like the kid that you adopted trying to do it out of a good heart, and they just destroyed your family.
Right. So what? I don't even know what that means, but it sounds good. So when they get offshore, and it's July, August, it's super hot, dead of summer. Are you even messing with those smallmouth? Can you
Yeah,
catch
man,
them?
they'll hunker down on offshore rock. That's where I find them, 35, 45 foot deep, literally like a Ned rig, a drop shot. They'll that's pretty much how we're targeting those fish. The other thing that's really good, and it's kind of a year-round bait, I'm sure I know you've messed with it. Every smallmouth dude has, is a spy bait. When it kind of gets hot, kind of dog days, and even when it's really, really cold in the dog days, and they're just like, anytime where the smallmouth don't really want to be super aggressive, and I think smallmouth are most aggressive in 45 to really 60-degree water. Once it starts to get really hot, like 75, 80 degrees, or if it's brutally cold, man, that spy bait just wiggling this fast in the water column tends to get bit, so we'll get out on some of those long sandy points that I know have isolated rock and just dink a dang spy bait around, just like.
How deep are you in?
Those fish are in 35 foot of water, I think, kind of hunkered down. So we're letting that spy bait just sink. They say they're pressure tuned, but I count them down. I count them down about 15 Mississippi and just let them fall and hope that little subtle action that they have swimming ends up pulling one of those smallies off the bottom to come up and grab it.
What's your setup for a spy bait? You throw a spinning rod or bait caster?
No, you get those guys, man. Listen, I'm kind of like one of these guys. I like watching the whole Japanese scene unfold. They're like, you got to use 4-pound test for your spy bait. I'm like, brother, you can have it if it's 4-pound test. I do put it on a 7.3 medium light rod, like long and limber, because I've noticed a lot of fish will spit that thing. So I want that like super parabolic action. I'm using 8-pound test, which is about as finessey as I like to get. And then, just die with reel, baby. Nice smooth drag, just somewhere they tackle it. That rod's going to be,
And that is a bait caster.
No.
Oh, spinning.
Rod.
Okay.
Spinning rod. Yeah, I get super. I don't like throwing them on a bait caster, man. Just
I was confused because you said lighter line in Japanese, and then you kind of went on that tangent there with the.
I like to fish it heavier.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do like to fish it heavier, but just not in a bait casting application. Like I just think that's overkill, man. The hooks are very small, and I'm a little bit wild. So if I start really winching on a fish, I've been known to bend out a hook on a small treble hook. So I'm like, it's simple for me to just put light line on, let the drag, and it's all spinning rod. That rod that I use is also a really good shad wrap rod, just to kind of put it in perspective.
Okay.
Something that's very long, that has a lot of whip, and something that really folds over and pull, finessey, long.
When you're fishing that spy bait in 30 plus feet of water, you're around some rocks and whatnot, you're thinking around the right structure. Are you seeing them on the graph at all, where you have the confidence to sit there and count that bait down and reel super slow, or are you kind of just set in and that's what you're doing, you're hoping for a bite, or do you see these fish that you're trying to catch?
Yeah, cat's out of the bag. I'm running Panoptics. It's one of those deals when they're hunkered down, really glued to the bottom, and you know this as a Panoptics user, it can be really hard to see them when they're glued to the bottom. A trained eye can see them, and I've been guiding for so long with that crap. I'm just like, oh, there's one down there. You can see them move, or you don't see them at all. You make one cast with a spy bait, and it's just moving. However a spy bait works, it just moves enough water where they might just show themselves. And I'm like, how smallmouth are, man. There's one, there's probably a few of them. So
I know conditions have to be ideal, but are you watching your spy bait on the graph as well?
Yeah,
when you can, at times.
The reality is, here as a guide, I kind of have the luxury of watching the bait on, the bait. So when I'm guiding somebody, I'm like, hey, line up your cast. You know how it is. Line up your cast, aim towards that buoy, or aim towards that tree, or aim whatever, that landmark. And then when he lands, I take that Panoptics and shine it to it. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, all right, you can start reeling about right now. And then, I'm watching his deal, and I'm looking for anything to show itself off the bottom, or, how it goes.
But that intrigues me, because I recently, I should say last fall, I really got into watching my jerkbaits a lot on the live scope.
Is that so fun or what?
It was awesome, but that's for me, and you probably run into this especially with a spy bait, because it's so slow and finessey and whatnot, and you must run into some bigger waves at times. Do you sometimes where it's just almost impossible though to keep track of that bait? Is there some days you're out there where it's just blowing and your boat's blowing and moving?
So for me, a spy bait is a calm water bait.
Okay.
So if it's like that, dude, you're gonna think I'm insane when I tell you what I'm about to tell you. But we call fish up off the bottom on a topwater bait.
In the waves.
Like when the waves are going crazy, it's absolutely insane how you can take a dang I'm a little stick spitting and watch them on Panoptics still even come off the bottom, man, and just, I'm talking about 25, 30 foot of water. They're on rock. They see that herring struggling at the top, and they're swimming from a long way and coming to tackle that thing.
Are you throwing that when it's calm too?
No. Well,
come on.
So here's the deal. I'm telling you, dude, our fish are just, I don't even know if it's pressure as much as, I don't know, man. They'll eat a walking bait. It just has to be a quieter walking bait. So I really like to switch to like a bull shad or something that's wood where it's just getting action. You're not getting a lot of noise. For me, like the more turbulent the water, the louder and more obnoxious I want my baits. The quieter and calmer the water, the more natural I want my baits. It's so, and then match that with.
That makes sense. It definitely makes sense. It's just a different, I've caught them in both conditions, but if you had to give me a choice for a walking bait for areas that I fish, like it'd be a little calm, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And I do know what you're missing out on.
I guess so.
Yeah. And it's different, these fish are locked into herring. So, man, they are so triggered when they see a dying herring. It's just like, oh, instinct. I've got to go eat that, and, at the same time, when you're throwing that big lap, you'll get bit in calm water with, calm water throwing that walking bait, but you won't, dude. You'll see a lot of fish on your Panoptics now that I can see it. They just follow it, man. They'll stay down in 5 foot of water. And up here, you're walking your bait on top, and those fish they're just tracking below it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much to learn now with this new technology. Again, I was having some success in the fall on that jerkbait, on the live scope. And I took it to another inland lake and used the jerkbait in 30 to 40 feet of water.
Yeah.
And this was only getting down 8 feet or so. And it's crazy how those fish will come up from 30 feet of water up to almost the surface.
Unreal.
And grab that bait. You can see them coming right up from the bottom. Like, how do they know? Like, their vision.
It's vision, and I do think there's a feel, man. And that's why to me, a lethal bait in my arsenal is even a big bait, man. Anything that's moving water quick or moving a lot of water is going to have draw power. I'm like OCD about draw power when it comes to like summertime, spring. it's going to be really hard to catch fish if you're not drawing them out of where they are, because they'll hunker down in some stuff. And that's why I glide bait to me, man. Same deal with these smallies. I've been out on a point like, dude, we're over 30 foot of water. Let's let this 10-inch bait sink about 2 seconds in 5 foot of water and just burn it. And they're like, burn it, burn it. That thing's gliding down there, and you just see these freaking monster smallmouth come up off the bottom. Like, whoa, I need to know about that.
We need to talk about that because you are a big bait expert when it comes to these big fish, whether it be largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass. I experiment a little bit, and I'm still learning the big bait, the glide baits, the big swim baits. I'm not at your level at all. So where does one start? Let's say I want to start experimenting with a bigger swim bait for smallmouth. Like, I don't even know where to begin.
I would say, what is the number one forage that your smallmouth are eating? Is it perch? Is it herring? Is it thread fins? And I'm trying to match my bait to that fish. You know, we have a lot of yellow perch in our lakes, just like you guys do up there. We have obviously herring, or alewife, it's the cousin of a herring. So for me, it's like, if I can stay in that ballpark with my lures and really match the hatch, I think that's a great just beginning point. I think, did you see when Polinick won Champlain? I know he caught it largemouth, but he had a glide bait out there, and I think he was throwing a perch color. It was I forget what it's called in the Arashi, whatever. We got them in the store, but that was the deal. It was a perch colored deal. He was catching largemouth, but on our lakes, the smallmouth chase him down. So match the hatch. What's the number one forage that the smallmouth are keying in on?
Okay, so color and then size. We're intimidated. A lot of people might be intimidated by a 10-inch swim bait.
Yeah.
So let's say we are, because I know you'd recommend throwing the 10-inch swim bait.
I do.
Without even hesitating, you'd pick one up and chuck it. I'm scared to, bro.
Come on, man.
Where do I got to start? Start me off a little smaller.
Let me tell you the whole theory behind this, okay? A bigger bait moves more water. The more water you move, the more followers you get. The more followers you get, the more bites you get. The more bites you get, the more fish you hook. The more fish you hook, the more fish you land. So, likewise, the smaller the swim bait, the less water you move. The less water you move, the less fish follow your bait. The less fish follow your bait means less bites. Less bites means less hookups. So, listen, if I'm going to take a fight with Shaquille O'Neal, I have the brain power, and I've seen myself, and I've seen Shaquille O'Neal in real life. I know that I'm probably going to get my tail whipped. Guess what fish don't have? They don't have mirrors, or they don't have the comprehension ability to know that thing's too big for you, hero. There's one video that I have. I was on Nantahala Lake. This was like early spawn, because we did catch a couple fish off a bed, but it was mostly pre-spawn, and I threw a 10-inch herring style glide bait. I mean, literally a big old fat nasty thing. Caught a 13.5-inch smallmouth, hit it head first. He just came out and pile drove the head of it, just boom. And I set the hook, and I'm like, I was with a guy, I was guiding a guy, and he's like, "Does that thing work?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, bro, we'll fish it down one bank, and let me show you." And I literally throw it right up next to a lay down, that little buck smallmouth up there staging, getting ready to spawn on some rocks. He was just finding cover to hang out on. I burned that thing by that tree, and he just come out and hit the head of it. I'm talking about it's glide, boom. And I set the hook, and I said, "Dude, look at this." I boat flip it. I got it on footage. And he was like, "What the heck was that fish thinking?" And I'm like, "Dude, they don't think like we think." The smallmouth, when they see a bait, an injured bait fish or something that just piques their interest, they're like, "Hey, boo, let me holla at you."
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely.
They just don't know how big they are.
All right. What would be the top, I guess, brands that you would recommend if you could pick 2 or 3 to get somebody started?
Yeah, I really like the Depths brand. I'm a premium guy. I really like the Depths 175s if you're like tournament, and a lot of guys get freaked out by the 250. I can go up to a lake right now and feel very confident I'm going to catch a limit of good smallmouth on a 10-inch glide bait. I just am. But I would say a lot of guys are like, man, that's big. It takes a whole nother rod setup and everything. So the depth's 175. It's a great lure. It's about 8 inches. Actually, I think it's like 7.5, but it's a great lure. I like the ABT, the homicide glides. And what's really unique about the homicide glides is the standard hook placement. The standard hook placement on a lure, is like one right here in the chest and one back here in the pubic fin. Well, what's cool about an ABT, I wish I'd had brought some. It has a nose hook, a T-bone hook, and a tail hook, and that's really the way a fish is going to eat a bait. They're either going to try to hit it head first, hit it from the side, or come at it from the back. So for me, an ABT is killer. And I also, on all those depth baits, I add a nose hook because I have so much tooth rash from teeth hitting the head. I'm like, God, dude, I'd hate to know how many 10-pound largemouth I'd have because they come up and strike the head of that 250 and then swim away. Like, what can I do? Well, it has a vertical line tie. Well, I'm like, I can put an O-ring on it, and then a treble hook is right in the middle. When it swims, it's centralized on its body, so it still keeps its good action. When you have a horizontal line tie, if you tried to put an O-ring on it, well, then that treble hook wants to go to one side or the other because your line obviously has to stay in the middle. So I like a vertical line tie, and for me, that's a depths bait. It's an ABT, and then in the more kind of generic, you see the guys with tactical bass and throw a lot of the S wavers. That's a great bait. It's got a horizontal line tie, so you're going to miss head strikes. The Gan crafts are really good, but once again, dude, I'm pretty simple. It's an ABT or it's a depths for me. Those are the only two brands that I even really own.
So the ABT is the homicide?
The homicide, yep.
And then the depths is, what do they call that?
They just call it the slide swimmer.
Slide swimmer.
Yep.
Perfect. And then they have a bunch of different colors to match the hatch. So if you're in a lake with big yellow perch, you'd recommend that.
ABT.
We have a lot of alewives up north.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think that bait fish pattern would work great for that situation. For these northern guys, I think the perch and the alewife is probably your best, even a shad type pattern, of course.
No doubt. Yeah.
And then down south, man, sounds like you got to have a herring.
A herring, and then, dude, they stock those 10-inch trout in our lakes, man. And those fish just, man, a trout is 10 inches. It's thin, it's slimy, and it's filled with protein. Like, man, it's an addictive little bait for them to eat. And so I've seen fish totally abandon the herring to chase trout around.
Do you mess around with any of the soft plastic bigger swim baits?
Oh yeah, man. Like,
let's talk about that.
Love a Mega Bass Mag Draft. Oh, I love a Mag Draft. I'll tell you what I really like is the Freestyle Mag Draft.
Okay.
Because I like to really fish it in stuff. Like, I like to drag it on the bottom. I like to fish it around cover, So for me, the Mega Bass Mag Draft, the treble hook, it's a little baby weight in the harness. And if you really burn it fast, that thing wants to kick up on its side.
Okay.
And when I have a belly weighted owner beast on that Freestyle, I can burn that thing and it just stays true. I mean, just right to you. It'll just super straight. And then
what's the before we get on the next bait, what's your best size that you found for that one?
A 6-inch. I like a 6-inch.
And then
I've caught a lot of fish on the 8-inch, and I've caught some fish on the 10-inch, but I've caught some really big smallies on that 6-inch with the owner beast hook. And once again, you're talking about an owner beast 8-aught owner beast hook.
It's an 8-aught. Okay.
Yeah, a 3/8 ounce. 3/8.
So it's a single hook in there.
Mm-hmm.
When you get that bite, walk me through the bite on a bait like that.
Man, if they're hitting it good, it's just one. You only feel one thing. You just feel tick. And when you cram, they're there. I mean, it should your rod should be bent over. If they're not getting it, it'll feel like like they'd come up and hit the tail of it while it's swimming. In our lakes, I've literally seen it, dude. I've cloudy day. Guess what color I was throwing? I was throwing like the pearl, whatever it's called. The colors Aldane was throwing there. In our neck of the woods where the Classic was in Tennessee there a couple of years ago. He had that monster bag, but I was throwing that pearl white, cloudy day. I could see it down 10 foot of water. I just seen it tick, and disappear. I'm like looking at it down there, and it just disappeared. I'm like, go, set the hook, 4.5 pound smallie. I'm like, that's dope. And catch a couple like that, and then come back the next day, same conditions, and reel on it, and just literally see them hit half the bait, and then the bait swims fine again. And it feels, when they get it good, it's just that real sharp tick. But when they're not getting it good, you'll feel like they'll come up behind it and almost like mouth it and swim.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. What was the next one you were talking about as far as soft swim bait?
A Huddleston. They are, dude, I don't want to use profanity. They are a B to get their hands on, because Ken's got a great product with the Huddleston. He doesn't even, wouldn't even consider it a business. They are the most inefficient business I've ever ran into.
Sure.
We carry the 68, which is the 6-inch with the 8-inch tail. They have the 8-inch, which we've caught some big smallies on the 8-inch, but that 68, that's a 6-inch bait with an 8-inch tail. And man, it's a little
6-inch bait with an 8-inch tail. Help walk.
The original Huddleston. Yeah, you're good. The original Huddleston was an 8-inch bait, and it came with a standard, the tail for the 8-inch bait. Well, then he came out with a 6-inch bait. So he had the 6-inch bait, and the 6-inch bait likewise had a smaller tail for the smaller body.
Okay.
Well, when a lot of tournament guys were like, hey man, I still want like a tournament size bait, but I want big bass potential. So he started making the 6-inch body with the tail size of the 8-inch swim bait.
Is that the style you'd recommend?
I've caught it's the style I throw the most when I'm targeting smallmouth, because that 8-inch bait is a lot to get their mouth around, because the Huddleston has just the single jig hook coming out of the head. Right. So for a smallmouth to get it, they got to hit the head. So what I'll do with the 68, it's a smaller profile, which means they can inhale it. And then on the harness, on the belly of it, I'll either do a double Palomar knot, or you get some guys, they'll crimp fishing line and put a treble hook right there at the pubic fin. So, if they short strike it and can only get around up to the hook, because the hook kind of stops in the top of their mouth, well, that treble hook will be in their mouth, and they'll get them with that stinger hook, harness hook.
Let's say I buy this Huddleston.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to rig it up, and I don't know where to start. Do you have any videos or anything I can make in the description here that would help people get, I need somebody to show me how to rig that stinger hook, if you will.
No doubt. I'll send you a link to the video, but you can go through the YouTube channel, Dream Catchers Fishing. And man, I've got a lot of stuff on there talking about how I dial in my A-rigs, how I dial in the big swim baits.
Okay.
And break down, maybe not so much more in depth. I mean, once again, dude, I think the biggest problem, and you could probably agree with this as a guide, and there's times, man, when guys have to overthink it. But dude, I think too many fishermen overthink crap. I think the biggest thing is turn your brain off and just fish. Match the hatch, fish the conditions. Obviously you got to know seasonal patterns and how those fish set up, but time of the year for seasonal pattern, what's the light conditions, and there's a gamut of baits right there that you could throw in a few different colors. And I just really try to keep it simple. You can get spun out. I mean, I'm not kidding you, dude. I got like 4 tackle boxes on my boat with just very simple stuff, from finesse swim baits, some jerk baits, some topwater baits, some wacky rig stuff, some drop shot stuff, Ned rig stuff, spinner baits, A-rigs. I mean, you don't really need much more, I'm just like, there's a lot of stuff. I don't crank as much. It's really tough to crank our lakes, and you can catch some big smallmouth doing that, by the way. But our lakes are like this steep. Like you're 20 foot, you're 20 foot off the bank, and you're in 60 foot of water. Mm-hmm. So it can be really hard to just get on a crank and bite. You're like parallel on the bank with a 6XD.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Wow, this is some good stuff. We're almost at our time limit, but we could probably talk another 4 hours. There's so much that goes into this. This is crazy. Yeah. I hope everyone that's listening, I know they've gotten some really good information out of you, Austin. Really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
And this was a fascinating conversation. What's the best way for someone to reach out to you? How can they follow you on social media?
Want to thank Jesus. Really, my whole fishing career wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't for my faith in Christ. I mean, I was hard times. When I ended when my baseball career came to an end, I was super depressed, suicidally depressed. My buddy led me to Christ and said, man, maybe God's calling you to be a fisherman in the fishing industry and tell people about the glory of God. And really, that's my hope at the end of the day. With the world the way it is now, man, like the only thing that I think about really is just enjoying God's creation and trying to tell them about the person that created it, and that's God. So thank God. I thank my dad, man. My dad was the original investor in my business. I had a dream for Dream Catcher Guides, and the Dream Catch really was this whole brand for me, man. Bringing a local tackle shop, really caring about our customers. You get a lot of guys in this industry, and I promise you, fishermen are the most jealous people on earth, and I've had a lot of haters, but we care about our customers maximizing their memories with their children on the water. And, you know, I give away a lot of what I do, man. I freaking tell guys, like, this is how I call them. This is where I call them. Like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I know these guys are going to shop with us. And, you know, my dad really bought into my vision for customer service and a local tackle shop and a local guide. And, you know, we had a great year last year. This year's been a great year. So thank my dad for that, and my wife. You know, we're actually now, I've got a son that's now 4 months old.
Wow.
So
Awesome.
Yeah, man, just incredible. Just want to thank my family. And then as far as sponsors, you know, I just use the best stuff, what I think's the best. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'll tell you, I exclusively sell Daiwa rods and reels in my store. I think they're the best. All metal interior gearing. They're Mac Daddy. They don't pay me to say that. I got to sell these things if I'm getting paid by Daiwa.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You know? But they're just so far technology wise. They're just so far superior. What do you use? You use Shimano, Daiwa? What do you use?
I do. I'm a Shimano guy for a lot of my real applications.
Shimano's a great brand. Shimano and Daiwa are the only top-down manufacturers. Straight up, they make everything that goes into their products. And for me, I just feel like for the budget fisherman, Daiwa has those price points. You know, you look at their Tatula, their flagship model. It's cheaper than the Corrados, the new Corrados. You know, those are $250, $300 reels, where those Tatulas, everything's $100 to, you know, $175, $200. So as far as our customer base goes, we really, really like Daiwa. But man, just out here grinding in, day out, just trying to make a living in this country.
What's the website, or what's the store's name? And
you can search Dream Catchers Fishing across any social media platform. You know, we have our YouTube channel, Dream Catchers Fishing, Instagram, Dream Catchers Fishing, Facebook, Dream Catchers Fishing. You know, I majored in social media marketing, so I wanted to make sure I had brand synergy as we moved forward. So we've got, I don't know how many followers we got. We got a growing YouTube channel, though, 3,000-ish people. And I've never really used it as a revenue source, but now it's actually like, okay, I guess I can make a little bit of money.
A little bit.
I'm no SmallmouthCrush.
Oh, come on. I'll tell you what, though, we got to get you on a live soon for sure, because people explode with your knowledge. Like it blows my mind. I mean, I don't know if I should do that, because last time you were on the live, I dropped a little too much money on these big swim baits.
You did, man. I still got your credit card on file if you want me to send you some.
I think I'm gonna probably I'm gonna get into it, dude. I'm not gonna like leave it fall behind. I'm going to make it work for me.
So you know, Eric throwing a glide bait his first ever day on Gaston, you know, largemouth lake, whatever.
Sure.
It was a 7 and an 8 pounder. His partner's like, you know, does that thing work? Moves a 7 and 8. The partner's like shook up, like, oh my gosh, you know. And then he goes back the next day, catches both those fish off of bed, wins the Derby. And he said, I would not have won the tournament if I didn't have those fish follow my glide bait. And guess what? Those fish ain't following a wacky rig. They ain't following a drop shot. They ain't. You know, one might follow a fat nasty.
That's true.
You know, it just moves a lot of water, and so special baits for sure. Come out. What I'm saying is, come out. Hang out with your boy. Learn the way of the master. I'm not the master, by the way. There's way more.
No. Listen, I recommend anyone that's in the area or traveling down there, and you want to hook up with a guide that knows what he's doing. You want to learn how to do this stuff. Dream Catchers Guide Service. That's who I'd be calling.
That's right. We
do
a lot of trips. How many trips did you do last year?
Not as much as I should.
Yeah.
I'm about 100, 150.
Yeah. Well, honestly, dude, that's healthy. You know, last year I did I ended up doing, I think 262. The year before that I did like 240 something. It's a little over the top, you know, but for me, it's like I can guide 5 or 6 hours and I'm off the rest of the day. And to me, it's
Sure.
it's no different than a normal 9 to 5. I just start a little earlier
Mhm.
and I get to be in my family's life. And obviously I have a tackle shop that I just kind of monitor, from afar, make sure things are running smooth, approving orders and stuff. But
If they stop in, can they find you there from time to time?
most of the time, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I had a guide trip this morning. I was like, I ain't coming by. And then my schedule said SmallmouthCrush podcast. And I'm like, got to get on with my boy.
That's right. That's right. Awesome stuff. Well, hey, I appreciate it, Austin, for coming on. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks,
Sounds
man.
good. And as always, until next time, we'll see you guys on the water.
Thanks so much for listening today. Make sure that you're subscribed to the show and follow us on Instagram at SmallmouthCrush. Also, the YouTube channel, SmallmouthCrush. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and comment with a review below. And as always, until next time, we'll see you on the water.